Welcome to Truth and Justice League podcast. I am Mark Mueller, and this is Denise Castro. Hi,
Hi.
Denise. We are doing the part of the series that is basically stories from the vault of Mueller law and the cases and trials and things that we've done over 40 years now. So Denise has heard some of these stories before, parts of them anyway. Which one would you like to hear next?
I'd like to hear about the one condom rape case that you referred to as a condom rape case.
So that's my friend Xan Wilson. She does not like being known as the condom rape case or the condom rape victim, but that was how the story ended up running in the press.
I see.
It's a tragic, horrific story. You know, it really illustrates, though, the power of the people to actually get attention and the strength and resilience of somebody who's been assaulted to protect themselves and to seek justice. So there's a lot of good within a very tragic and horrible story. I got a call from the Rape Crisis Center, and I used to consult with the Rape Crisis Center from time to time and help them on legal issues and, sometimes do mild counseling of people. Wasn't a trauma counselor or anything like that. But, when people had questions and things like that, I was somebody they could call for a resource for free. And they do good work. The Austin Rape Crisis Center was a very good group of people. I get a call from them, and they said, hey, we've got this situation that's occurred that we think is outrageous, and we want to see what you would recommend that we do and if there's a way you could help. So essentially they told me this lady, Xan Wilson, was asleep in her apartment when she was woken up by a guy that had broken into her place with a knife. He had a knife. I don't know whether he got it from there or whatever, but he had a knife. And he basically had some bad intent on his mind.
Of course.
And he said, he basically held the knife to her and said, you're gonna have sex with me. And she was in a very bad situation. She woke up at night with somebody over her with a knife, and chances of her struggling her way out of that, she was shocked and went into extreme life preservation mode.
Mm-hmm.
And she somehow had the presence of mind to go, well, if you're going to do that, I need you to use a condom. And he said, well, I don't need to use a condom. She said, I need protection. Well, what about AIDS? That she really remarkable that she was able to pull these things out. He goes, well, I don't have AIDS. And she says, how do you know? I don't. Unbelievable.
Jeez.
He raped her.
Oh.
And then when he was finished with whatever he was doing, she reported immediately. And then before not too long, he was actually rounded up. He was in fact a neighbor, and apparently had his eye on her and was stalking her. She didn't know that. And then he somehow got in through a sliding glass door, and he jimmied it somehow and got in. So he's picked up, and he confesses, he admits it, that he broke in, had a knife, and had sex with her. And he said it was consensual.
What?
Oh yeah, and that proof of consent was they used a condom. So that was his defense. They picked him up. Okay, so this is ridiculous. 100 ways to Sunday, right?
Right.
And in Texas, these felony crimes like this, or alleged crimes, it's alleged until somebody's convicted of it, they have to go through what's called a grand jury, which is different than a civil jury that we hear about trials. Grand jury is a group of people that meet for a long time, could be weeks, could be months, and they evaluate whether or not a case should be taken and filed. So whether there's enough evidence that there should actually be a trial. They don't decide the person's actual innocence or guilt, but just is there enough stuff that this charge is just to be brought. Mm-hmm. So this grand jury, they I don't remember what all evidence they got at the time, but it wasn't a whole lot. And they came back and charged him with felony burglary, but not rape. And so, I mean, I guess technically may not make much of a difference in his sentence. Felony burglary could be a long time. But it was very offensive that he wasn't charged with rape. Because that's what he did, and that's why he broke. And that's why he broke in.
Right.
Anyway, so
that was his whole reason for breaking in.
His whole reason to break in was to go have, in his mind, have sex with this with this occupant of this apartment, who turned out to be Xan Wilson.
But the state didn't think there was enough evidence to charge him with that?
It was the way it worked is the state presented whatever they had, and the grand jury then decides what to do. They vote.
It's the grand jury.
The grand jury votes, and they vote yes, no to these various charges. And so this highlights a lot of different things. It's because how the case is presented to the grand jury depends on the prosecutor. Are they paying attention? Are they awake and aware? Also depends on, what evidence they're actually given. Is it appropriate for the grand jury to get this evidence or more evidence to fully understand what they're dealing with? And then the content of the grand jury, because they change all the time. Who are they? You get somebody in there has, as you know, from watching TV, any public conversation, people have wide different belief systems on things, right? So most likely it won't be unanimous no matter what. But anyway, this seemed to be a no-brainer. The Rape Crisis Center people say, can you meet with the client and talk to her and then just tell us what you think we should do? So I did. I said, sure, send her over. And so she came over with her friend, and and Xan, we're still dear friends to this day. She was a little rough, around the edges at that time, right? She'd just been assaulted.
Yeah.
So, but she had, piercings and she was a down to earth kind of person, right? She didn't look like your sorority girl or the girl next door. So, well, maybe this is part of it. So people are like, well, if you look like, if you're maybe you look like you're a biker girl or something. I'm not saying she looked like a biker girl, but it was maybe her appearances had something to do with the way they were judging her. Which
the typical you asked for it.
Kind of a version of it, like
which there is no excuse ever.
Right. Exactly.
Never makes it okay.
So I don't know, but the when I met with her, I mean, I really liked her a lot. She came in and she had she came in with a friend of hers. The friend was a very upfront, I'm a lesbian, whether that's relevant or anything or not. But this is 30 years ago. We were in a different era, but it's still Austin. We're a progressive place. We should be tolerant of all kinds. I mean, Austin has always been considered to be a tolerant and a diverse space. Keep Austin weird is our motto, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying this to give you a visual of what the grand jury might have been making, judgments about what do they look like, what do they see, what are their backgrounds, they're not a college student, they're not, she's a working girl, not, working girl as in, she worked phone jobs and different things, and that's who she is. And so we have piercings and, tattoos and what's going on. None of this stuff, should be relevant to rape.
Right.
None of it, right? But I'm wondering, well, maybe it was, but then, it shouldn't be. And then we talked about this, and it was like, well, how the heck could any grand jury, if the guy admits he broke in with a knife and he had sex with you. How in the world could a jury, a grand jury, not think that that was a reason to have him at least charged?
Right.
You know, if a jury hears all the evidence and goes, well, it's not that simple, you know, there's more to it than that, and they let him off, well, then we have to accept that because that's our system.
Mm-hmm.
But this was just, should he be charged?
Yeah, he's not even going to be charged for it.
He should be charged, right?
Right.
He should at least have a trial.
Yes.
It should at least have a trial. So she gave me this rundown of what had happened, and I called the district attorney's office, and those are the ones that will be responsible for, you know, running it past the grand jury, presenting the case, and also for somebody else would be in charge of doing a trial if there's a trial. So I call up the district attorney's office, and I asked to speak to somebody that was, I guess they had the name for me because I had a number to call. I want to know who's in charge of this particular investigation. I talked to him and I said, hey, you know, I don't know what happened, but this is clearly bizarre and it shouldn't be tolerated. This should not happen anywhere, not in redneck parts of Texas, not in, you know, rural Texas, not in urban Texas, but certainly not in Austin, Texas. Certainly not. You know, of all places. This is ridiculous. And this is not going to go disappear. People are furious about this. I said, I got a call from the Rape Crisis Center, and who I've done a lot of, you know, consulting with over the years, and they are upset. And the client, the victim, is upset, and this is not going to go away. And I knew from an article that I'd written years ago that was in, I think, the Beaumont Enterprise newspaper, there was an article I wrote about grand juries and about the need to, you know, put on a fair presentation at a grand jury because it can be biased, you know, and you could either let people slide or you could overly charge people at the grand jury basis, right? And that there are protections about that. You can have more than one grand jury on a single case. You can do a couple of them. You can do more than that if you want to. Obviously, you don't want to keep running it. You know, if they just keep not charging it, then there's probably a problem.
Right.
But you could have another one, especially if there's been an egregious error that's going to make you look really bad. And it's going to be bad for the safety of your community, which this is also about. Like, let's not have open season going on for women or anyone else to be attacked.
Exactly.
Just not happening. And we need to be watching that now, by the way, too. As always, but we need to be watching it now. Mm-hmm. Encouraging people to, you know, it's okay to attack and be vicious? No, it's not.
Right.
The district attorney, I said, you know, this is so aberrational, right? But I'm wondering if this is a result of the jury not understanding rape trauma, rape situations, and rape psychology. Similar to like not understanding date rape or not understanding a victim, not reporting it right away, or going home to take a shower, washing off the evidence, right? All those things because they're feeling guilty, they're feeling shame, they're worried, they're concerned, they don't know what to do. And so, you know, people, maybe it's somebody they know, maybe it's something like that, but, you know, they don't know what to say and do it when it's happened to them. What do you do? So people react in lots of different ways. Some of them suppress it. Some of them, you know, get drunk. Some of them blame themselves, you know, all kinds of things. And so I had talked to a psychologist that was a friend of mine that was an expert at rape trauma. And she said, well, you know, I think that the grand jury needs to be made aware of the situation and how people respond differently to circumstances and be able to put themselves in a situation where they can understand from the victim's viewpoint what this was all about and have a better appreciation for it. Then they would not make some kind of a ridiculous, in our opinion, judgment that consent meant, you know, the condom meant consent, which means that it nullifies everything else. So I talked to the DA, the assistant DA, and I said, you know, you need to run this by another grand jury and do it with the help of a rape counselor type of person that can explain what's going on, and so that the grand jury is at least informed and aware. And then if they don't decide to indict him, then, well, we took a fair shot, we whiffed, and it is what it is. There will be mistakes. And so well, it's our practice to only do one grand jury, and we abide by the results, or that's how we do it. And we just have never done more than one, and we don't have psychologists or counselors there. We just have the victim and the police officer and the defendant, if they are willing to waive, they're willing to go in and testify. They don't have to. They can't be forced to. And so I said, well, you need to do another grand jury here, in my opinion, because you're going to have a riot. And you're going to look terrible. And we're not going to shut up. I guarantee you that if you don't have another grand jury and address this in a responsible way, you're going to have essentially a strike of women all over the place. Not just women, but women will lead it. And it's going to be loud, and it's going to be clear, and it's going to be, and some of you people may lose your jobs because of this. And the public will be very much against everything you're doing, and you'll lose credibility completely. So you just need to do this. Trust me. She said, well, no, it's our policy. And I said, why don't you go talk to the district attorney and ask the district attorney, the head one. So she apparently did. It was a woman I was talking to. She apparently did. And then she comes back and she says, no, I just talked to him, and we're going to stick with our normal policy. And I said, please don't do that. This will be a disaster, a PR disaster, a moral and ethical disaster. Don't do it. I'm sorry, that's our decision. So I think I told them, by the way, there's going to be all the women's groups and all the activist groups are going to be on the streets by the end of the day. And this is going to be front page news. So I gave them all that information. They said, well, I'm sorry, we have made our decision. So got on the phone right after this, called the Rape Crisis Center, called the newspaper, called the TV station. And then the Rape Crisis Center activated their whole chain of people. And I think within an hour or two, there were people all over the courthouse square with signs in the Capitol, about this stuff. And it was on back then there weren't as many stations, but it was on CNN, and it was live news. It was on the front page of New York Times the next morning.
Wow.
Austin, Texas. This is, does condom mean rape? Does condom mean consent? What constitutes rape? Blah, blah, blah. All this kind of stuff. Within hours. Boom.
Like how many people would you say?
I don't know. There were hundreds, at least.
That's pretty good within an hour.
And it was just boom. It was out there. And next day, I'm in my office, and a phone call came in, and Terry Thornton, who he was working the front desk that day, and he picked up the phone. Mr. Mueller, there is a call from the district attorney, Ronnie Earl. Are you available? And I said, tell him to hold for a minute, and then put it through. Okay. So he made him hold for a delicious minute or two, right, on this one. And basically my end of the conversation was like this. Yes. Oh, I'm glad to hear you've reconsidered and you'd like to meet with my client and a psychologist and my client's friend as well. And you'll send a car to pick us up, and you'll take us to the private club for lunch. Right? So we were getting and then we'll go down to your office and talk about the case. That was it, basically. Very polite.
For sure.
Very nice. And I appreciate that he personally made the phone call. So that's what happened. So we did go down to had a meeting with the district attorney, Ronnie Earl, who turned out to be, he was a really good guy. He's now deceased, but good guy. We went on to become really good friends. Mm-hmm. And we had lunch, and we had a meeting in his office with my client and with the psychologist. And we talked about this kind of all this stuff. And he agreed to do another grand jury and have the psychologist testify and answer questions the jury might have about rape, psychology, rape behavior, all that kind of stuff. And so as a result of that, this time they returned a what they call a true bill to charging him with both burglary and rape. And so we won that part of the battle. But this is now like front page news everywhere.
Yeah, and I thought it wasn't their policy to do a second grand jury.
Well, we okay, so things kind of changed. And so this became like really the story of the day. And so we started getting calls from like every TV personality that you could imagine. From like Montel Williams and Good Morning America, Oprah Winfrey, just every one of them. All these different TV personalities, right, were wanting to do this story because, this was the big story. And, there's still going to be a criminal trial about this. So we have to be very careful about what questions and answers are given to TV. You have to be very careful what you say when there still hasn't been a trial. Not only to not overtly influence too much the jurors, but also to, be careful that you didn't say something and forget what you meant or what you said before or something like that. And so now they got something to pick at. So I had to go with her on these things so that I could steer it, control it, right? So if there were things that I knew that she legally shouldn't be answering, we would convert that. But our purpose was to educate as many people as we could about this situation. Well, it was hot. And this was a remarkable situation because I learned that most of these TV talking head hosts were just pathetically informed. They only knew the paragraph or so of information they got from their staff about the case. That's it. That's all they knew. And they maybe spent 2 minutes reading the summary before you went on. And you might have met with them a minute or two beforehand where they just greet you and whatever. It was just so superficial. It was mind-blowing. Actually, the best one, and I'm not a big fan of her now, but the best one of the interviewers was actually Oprah. She actually did a more extensive interview than some of the other people did. But, I'm not really, I've got questions and issues around Oprah. But, she was a good host for us. She actually asked the most pertinent questions. But some of these people were just unbelievable, Denise. There was this one lady, I think it was Jane Whitney.
The woman you're about to meet is making headlines all over the country in a very controversial rape case. Xan Wilson asked her rapist to wear a condom before he attacked her. She charged rape, but he says the condom meant she consented to have sex. This case is now being debated around the country, but it first became public with Xan's call to 911.
You two were the only people there, and I think that there were only that you two were the only people that knew. And
did you know that he climbed over a 6-foot fence and broke in her house at 3:30 in the morning with a knife?
like I say, I don't know the specifics. Only those two know what happened.
Let's just, because you weren't there and she wasn't there in your particular case.
We're backstage getting ready to go on, and she's telling us, well, this is what's going to happen. This is where you're going to sit, and this is what we're going to start with, and that kind of stuff. And she's telling us, this is more for Xan's purpose than mine, but she's like, well, Xan, you're going to sit over here, and then Mark will sit next over here, and then Joel will sit over here.
What? Wait, the guy?
The rapist.
The rapist.
Yeah. They were going to bring on the rapist on the TV show in the same room within 6 feet of my client to do a dog and pony show.
We're going to hear the other side of Xan's rape story. Her convicted rapist tells quite a different version, and we'll have that when we come back. Xan Wilson asked her attacker to wear a condom. Malcolm Nettles is the lawyer for Joel Valdez, the man convicted of raping Xan. We should point out that Xan has left because she feels that she really doesn't want to be up on the set with you and respect her wishes.
Xan looked at me. I looked at Xan and I said, the hell we are. There is no way we are going on a show live or taped
Crazy.
with the guy that raped my client. That's crazy.
Yeah.
How could you possibly think that that was acceptable? I said, we're leaving. Oh, boy, that freaked him out. No, please. Oh, no, we'll talk to him. He won't be, we're going to take him. He's off stage. So she's like scrambling around. Now he's off stage. He's gone from the building and all this other kind of stuff. And now, of course, she's promoted this show, right? We got a real problem, right? If they don't have some part of the show on the air.
Mm-hmm.
We then go on.
Excuse me, have you ever been raped?
No, I have not.
What would you do if a man broke into your house at 2:30 in the morning, held a knife to you, and told you to do these things? Are you going to look at me and tell me I
First
was
of all,
lying?
I can't answer that because I don't know.
Then you
But the
can't
other
judge
thing
me
is,
either.
you know who he was.
I did not know him. I did not know he was my neighbor. He lived behind me. So you need to get your facts straight before you judge me. And I tell you what, anyone that has the education of a 7th grader still knows the difference between right and wrong.
Even people that should be aware of these kinds of things do things that just are trauma reintroducing behaviors. For example, they were going to have the rapist, alleged, not convicted rapist yet, but come on, we know he did it, on the same stage, standing this close as we are together on TV. Ridiculous. Like how insensitive that. Just think about how stressful and traumatic that would be for someone to be face to face with this person who did this. It's just no. So actually, we had a chance to kind of burn Jane Whitney on TV. Okay, because we had the upper hand there and we pushed
Right.
it. So we did several of those shows. Then the trial happened. Okay, and Dana Blasey was the district attorney. And the prosecuting it was here in Travis County, Austin. And there was plea bargain offers made that they were running by us, okay? And they first offered this guy, like, I think 5 years probation or something like that.
What?
And Dan's like, absolutely not. No, I won't agree, and I'll make a stink about it. Because now they know we will make a stink, right? We will make a stink. So they are going to have to get her to agree, whatever happens. And so, nope, 5 years to do, nope. Okay, so I was not involved in the plea bargaining, by the way, but that was, she wouldn't agree to anything that wasn't many years in prison. And to the extent where it was for him, he might as well take a risk at trial because he's be pleading to 30 years would be no difference, right?
Yeah.
So the case went to trial. I was there. I was not at counsel table. I was support team. And the trial went really well. Xan did a great job testifying, and Dana Blasey, who's now a judge, did a great job prosecuting. It was, in a way, I kind of almost felt sorry for him because it was such a pathetic defense.
Oh.
Okay, it was just like, are you kidding me? I mean, and his attorney didn't have an easy job. This is not an easy situation because he's already admitted to it.
The guy's guilty.
Yeah, it's a tough situation to try to win the situation. I'm just saying it's not, I don't feel bad for him, but, he
Yeah.
created this.
Of course.
He created this situation for
Yeah.
himself, right? And it's a bad one. And it's something for people to think about before they get into any bad situations is, really terrible things can happen. Like, I don't know what he was thinking when he broke in that building, but it wasn't a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's getting worse. It's getting very real. So his defense was something like this. Yeah, I broke it. I was attracted to her. I noticed her around the property, that there was something there between us, kind of thing, right? And I broke in. I got into her apartment through this sliding glass door. And I did have a knife, or picked up a knife someplace. I can't remember if he had it when he walked in or he picked it up from her kitchen. But he had a knife. And he admitted that he had a knife in his hand when he woke her up, basically a big knife. And then he said, and somewhere along the line, she decided, as he said, to make love to me.
This guy. Did he actually say that on
Yes.
the sta-
Yes. So somewhere along the line between getting the house broken into and waking up with a knife,
Yeah.
Now she's got the hots for him.
Yeah,
and wants
because
to
that's
make
her
love.
fantasy.
It's her thing, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's her kink.
Right, right. So
Jeez.
yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
we're laughing because it's so inappropriate.
It's so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous, right? So ridiculous. So people can have whatever fantasies they want to have, but come on, this is not a realistic trial defense that we're
Right.
having here. And it's not even close to what happened. It's not true. But that's when they tried to weave the whole condom thing in, and she decided to make love to me, kind of thing. And that I think it was something like, he was sorry if he was mistaken, but she basically, let him on with this, it was like crazy stuff. And so he was convicted. And they gave him 45 years or something, a lot of time. And I will tell you that for Xan, we went on to, I represented Xan in a civil case that we filed against her, the little small apartment building. It was a small place. And we sued the owner of the place for having a defective sliding glass door that wouldn't properly lock. Okay. And we're able to settle her case for, at the time, it was 7 figures. It was the total amount of what they had for insurance. It wasn't a big corporation. But we got the money. And Xan then started a group, a nonprofit, with the money called WHAM, Women on the Move. It was basically a truck, and she and a couple of her friends, and they were on call 24/7 to remove women from dangerous situations and take their stuff and their family to someplace safer. That was not the end of the story for Xan. She, went through years of recovering from this kind of stuff. The rest of the story is pretty profound, and she finally met the right guy after years of problems with drugs and psychological problems. She finally met the right guy that was her person, right? And he was having a really, really hard time. He was going through really some stuff. And one day she came back from wherever she was, and he had shot and killed himself on their driveway. And so, boom, yeah, right. So she called me when that happened, and wow, pretty big, right?
Yeah.
Xan is very special. She's also the one that gave us and painted the neon painted griffins that you see around here. We have these griffins that are like this. Yeah, they're neon metallic paint. It's a really special person and wonderful person. And I remember that every time this guy Joel came up for parole, she would get anxious, and she was terrified. There was she never really got over that feeling of anxiousness around this guy. And so she would attend every one of those hearings and speak in opposition to it, because in her mind he was not ready to come out, not time to get out. And so she was successful. So he was in prison a long time. And then she called me 2-3 weeks ago and said, I have information. She said he was moved to a medical unit of the Texas Department of Correction, and he passed away. So he's no longer alive.
Wow.
So he died in prison. I don't know anything more about all the circumstances of what happened to him. But that was the whole cycle of the case, the horrible trauma, the public information that happened in education, then, her, starting a nonprofit with the proceeds of things, still trying to do the right thing, then finding the right guy, and then he kills himself, and then end of the chapter ends, I guess, when Joel dies, in prison. The good that came out of this is I met an amazing person named Xan, who's been, as you've met her, she's wonderful, and she's a really great great human being, really helps people a lot. And we changed the way grand juries work in sexual assault cases in Texas. After this, in most of the major counties, they will have a social worker or a psychologist or rape trauma counselor, somebody to be in the grand jury room to tell the grand jury about whatever the relevant facts are about rape, trauma, and behavior under the circumstances of the case, and answer questions for them. So we changed policy. And we also opened the policy to, yes, we can do another one if there's an egregious miscarriage of justice. So there we go.
Being raped has changed my life in a number of ways. In the early years, there was an entire period of self-loathing, depression, self-destructive behaviors, suicide attempts. The way it has changed my life today has given me the power beyond what I had 27 years ago to be the voice for the victims that are not here, the ones that didn't survive.